G'day there, Warwick Johnston here with you today with another of our Vodcast updates. I'm the founder of SunWiz, which is well known for our market intelligence. I'm going to be introducing you in a moment to Aaron Ware of Pedley Solar, one of Queensland's top retailers. He's got some really fascinating insights to share with you. But before I do that, I'm going to share a screen with you of market intel, and so that's not the one we want to see. There we go. So the question is, what's happening in the market at the moment? And this is the most up-to-the-date data that we've released. And that showed that May 2020 had 220 megawatts worth of solar power registered across the country. Now, what was interesting about that is it's the third biggest month we've had on record. And so, to me, this is saying, hey, we're still in fantastic territory. But when you compare that to previous Mays, you usually see that May is about the same level of volume as March. So, and the reason April is generally lower is because of Easter and Anzac Day. So what we're seeing here is the start of a COVID impact. I suspect we had an artificial boost in March as people said, oh, I'm sitting on all these STCs or jobs I should register for STCs for, and that would have bumped things up a bit through March and April. We're starting to see a bit of a slowdown in the market, but it's still the third best month we've had ever, and still well and truly above where it was at the same time last year. So yes, there's been a bit of an impact in the market, but it's more the case of, hey, we haven't quite reached to where we could have got to if all this hadn't happened. Compared to when we're looking at it in February and March going, holy, what's going to happen? We're in a much better position than previously. And if we just dive into the market a little bit more deeply, you can still see we're 35% ahead of the year to date for the previous year. So the market is going strong. And the other thing to note is that residential was affected more so than small to medium commercial. So it seems to have been insulated a bit from that, despite missing out on some of the previous surge. And then if we had a look at the state level stuff, you can see that New South Wales and Queensland actually held up quite strongly, but Victoria dropped right back, as did Western Australia. So this has been felt differently in different parts of the market, but we're certainly in a more healthy state than we could have been, and certainly more than many other segments of the economy are. So look, I'm going to introduce you to somebody that can actually help with your COVID recovery. I'll introduce you to Aaron Ware from Pedley Solar. Say good day, Aaron, and give us a wave.
And how you doing?
So the reason Aaron was speaking to Aaron today is because Aaron's written a book, which is almost like a how-to guide for running a solar retailer, especially for people who might be in that situation where you're a small one-man or small one-team kind of unit that wants to grow. And Aaron's been through that process and here to share some of that wisdom with you. And just so you get an understanding of where he's managed to grow to, and respect to him for this. Speaking with you before, Aaron, you're one of the top 5 retailers in Queensland for 2019, and that was off the back of $12 million worth of turnover. And what number did you say you're on track to for 2020?
Yeah. So this year we're on track for 26 mil in revenue. So yeah,
fantastic. And where did you start off?
So we started off back in 2015. I started my own little company. It was just a one-man band. It was just me driving around, knocking on doors, trying to drum up work. And I was turning over probably $500,000. And so from there, it went from $500,000 to $1 million to $3 million to $7 million to $12 million. And then this year we're on track for $26 million. So yeah, it's just been like a hockey stick.
But mate, you make it sound like it's easier a walk in the park, but I'm not so sure it was, and not just so easy to snap your fingers and make that happen. So tell us what motivated you to write this book.
So yeah, like I look back on all the stress and the hardships and the things that I went through. I had relationships with the wrong people. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing. I had a con artist come into my life and I lost hundreds of thousands of there. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and everyone keeps going like, you're killing it. And in my head, I kept saying to myself, but I've made all these mistakes and I've done all these things wrong. And I kind of stepped back, and I took a break for 2 or 3 weeks where I did nothing. And I looked back on the business. I was like, wow, I actually have like created an empire here. And I had these beliefs in my head about how all these things went wrong, when realistically they had to go wrong. They paved the way for how I got to where I am today. And so then I started thinking, well, what about if I knew all those things and I could give it back to myself 10 years ago? Like, what would I say to Aaron, 20-year-old Aaron? What would I hand over to him? So I started documenting the journey. I wrote down all the things that went right, all the things that went wrong, and I ended up with this massive book. And then I started looking at it, and I was like, you know, sometimes you can read a book and you can sort of paraphrase it in a paragraph. You can just tell people like, you know, this massive book's got this much in it. So I started stripping all the book back, and so check it out here. It's quite thin. It's just like powerful. It's just full of beefy tips and tricks and hacks.
Yeah, it's great, and I've been privileged to read a copy of it. And you know what I saw when I was reading through it is, you know, some of this, you know, is just real common sense stuff. Some of it, I went like, oh, geez, I wish I'd known that back then. And some of it is still like, yeah, I know I need to get round to that, even in my business still, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in a small book there. You know, congratulations for doing that. Really smart, concise stuff.
Yeah.
And look, it's interesting, like, how to say, I had a friend who's a Sparky out here, actually did the solar system on my roof, and he's a really well-respected, you know, background was a commercial installer, leading a commercial contracting team for some big jobs. And for a range of different reasons, he stepped back into running a small residential retail business of his own, thinking, you know, geez, I can make some money on the product as well, and all this sort of stuff. And we're discussing it, and you know, where he's at the moment, and you know, he's having difficulty, like many people, going from that one-man operation through to you know, something that can actually scale and grow. And I remember reading in your book something about you know, the steps that you went through. Do you want to just share some of those for those people in that situation?
Yeah, so I think the main thing for, like, it sounds so easy for me just to verbally say this to you now, but just to summarize it all up at a high level, all you basically need to grow your business is more business, right? You need more sales. So someone that's still driving around and physically doing the work, if they had an influx of 100 jobs that they knew they had 100 jobs coming in for next week, well, they wouldn't be driving around. They wouldn't be on the tools anymore. So they'd be able to sit back and employ someone to do that work. So as my business was growing, it was kind of like it was like a seesaw where I'd bring in more sales, and then the operations would be down here, and then I'd be too heavy, top end heavy. And then I'd be like, oh, I need more sales to balance it out. So it was kind of like a seesaw effect. You can split any business in half, whether it's even a bakery or a mechanic, a Sparky, a plumber, anything like that. You can split it down the middle. It's made up of 2 sections. You got operations and you got sales. So if I was talking to someone who wants to have the tools and wants to grow, the first thing you need to do is understand marketing and sales. You need to have business coming in. Once you've got that business coming in, you can then step out and employ someone, whether full-time or a contractor, to then do that work. I think that's the number one struggle for me, was releasing. And I think that's every business owner's problem. Every entrepreneur out there, they're a control freak, whether they want to admit it or not. They don't want to let things go. And one coach said to me one thing, and it really stuck with me, and that was, you always want to do things because you can do it a million times faster, and you can do it 100%. When you hire someone, most of the time they do things at 60%, 70%. The good ones might do it at 80%. But what you got to understand is, what happens when you go and hire 10 of those people? They're now doing it at 800%. And what can you do with that? 100 on your best day. And that really resonated with me, and got me thinking about, oh, he's right. Maybe I should start to let go of that. Maybe I should hire a manager for that. Maybe I should let go of that. And then once I really started to grasp that concept, that's when things just skyrocketed.
Yeah, fantastic. I relate to that myself. I went through a period where I went, oh yeah, I have to let go of doing everything in order to deliver on what is possible for the
Yeah.
business and potential. So, and look, in there, there's some, other tips and tricks, things that are really important to do. I remember you've got segments on constant nurturing of your customers and follow up, your after sales service and feedback forms, etc. This is something which I see is a key thing that's missing from the industry, if you like, and it's pretty. It's possible to automate as well, and that is, how can you increase your likelihood of winning a job at a higher rate? How can you get more referrals and ratings and reviews and improve on your jobs? And a lot of this is possible through drip feeding emails and content. And so that's why I'm actually working today with a couple of other business partners to deliver that package to small business owners so that they don't have to figure out the technology to do it and write all the content for them, etc. as well. But these are like stuff which can take your business from being the same as everybody else to all of a sudden having people flock to your door, which is, I'm guessing, what's happening now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just imagine anyone that's out there. If you're quoting right now, if it's normal for you to quote, 20 jobs and get 1 or 2, imagine if you quoted the same amount of jobs, but you got 5 or 6. Like, that's doubling your business overnight. And so, like what you just mentioned there, all those little things add up. Getting the reviews, having the lead nurturing, having follow-up calls, the marketing, the retargeting, all that sort of stuff. It might only add 1%, but it's like 1% from the nurturing, 1% from the retargeting, 1% from the follow-ups, 1% from the reviews, 1% from your landing page. All those little 1% add up. And when you're talking about scaling a business, the best way to do it is to add more leads, but also to increase that conversion rate. So I think that's something that a lot of tradies, you don't get taught, right? You go do a 4-year apprenticeship, you get master at your craft, you know how to swing a hammer, you know how to cut wires, but you don't get taught how to increase conversion rates and all these cool marketing tactics and tools that are available to you.
Yeah. Then once you get to that point where you're more reliably converting at those rates, like there's the opportunity to increase your price, right? Increase your profit margin as well. And go like, well, I'm not going to, I can win six jobs at 15% margin, or I can win 5 jobs at 25% margin. Which one do you want to do, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So we're also through some of the stuff we're doing, partnering with Open Solar, is actually using the big data, the power of big data, to identify where businesses can improve their profitability just by making some tweaks to how they operate their business. Now, look, this book, how do people get a copy?
Yeah, so it's very, very simple. It's just trademadebook.com. So TRADEMADE book.com/free-book. So I've ripped out, these are on Amazon for $20. I went and done a good deed and I've bought 50 of these books. I went and bought 50 of them off Amazon. So I'm going to ship them out. All you got to do is cover the shipping costs, and you can get yourself a copy today. And another little special treat I'm throwing in for anyone that registers today. I'll get a link of your email, and then I'm going to reply back to that email, and I'm going to send you through a special formula that we use for knowing your numbers, so you can know what your break-even number is. It's a formula. If you don't have this in your toolkit, then that's probably why you're plateauing and not growing. So cash flow is king, and it's a pretty cool little tool to have.
Again, thanks so much for that, Aaron. Thanks for making that book free for people just covering shipping and that extra bonus. I think it's a great read for everybody. It's quick and it's powerful and impactful. And I'd like to see a vibrant solar industry full of businesses like yours that are able to deliver great service to the end customer, not have to compete with the shonks and cowboys, and it stop being a race to see who can drop their pants the furthest. With this, I think we can grow the industry much as your business has grown as well. So, hey, thanks for coming along today to share some of your wisdom and guidance, and for doing what you're doing. Both, hats off to you for your business and what you're contributing to the rest of the industry.
Thanks, Ware. Happy growing.